many examples. Oh, here's one. So in 1972, in High Springs, which is, I don't know, a half hour north of here or something, High Springs, Florida, there was a High Springs Tobacco Festival in 1972. And during that day, you could see anything from like watermelon seed spitting to Mud Crutch at night. 2 nights they had a dance with Mud Crutch. And there's a poster that circulated around, this multicolored poster. On Gainesville Rock history, someone shared a couple pages of the program. And in it says that, because I should say the poster doesn't give an address. It's just like, okay, everyone would just know where this place is. And that's the thing back then. They never put like street addresses in it. It really frustrates me. But on the program, it said Big Dollar Warehouse, US 41, High Springs. Okay, well, Big Dollar Warehouse doesn't exist anymore, and US 41 is a long road, right? So it could be anywhere. So I did all the research and nothing, and connections. And even my UF librarian team struck out sort of. So I had a source who said two sources who said I was there. And one source said, I remember being here. And here is now a bunch of storage units, modern building. And another person said, I was there, and I remember it being to the left of the storage units. And oh, and by the way, I ended up marrying the tobacco queen that year. That's pretty cool. And anyway, that aside, so the UF librarian took those shreds and started looking through, well, what businesses are there now? Like a propane place, storage units, whatever. And there's a place called ThemeWorks. And ThemeWorks, I learned, is a company that, interestingly enough, in the small town of High Springs, makes like amusement park rides. So they're doing like Star Wars, Disney. They have huge accounts that, like anything theme park, the hotels and theme parks and stuff. Really interesting lab with all kinds of cool stuff going on. Anyway, I emailed the president who was on the website out of the blue and said, hey, here's the story. And I expected him to ignore it. But 2 days later, he wrote back and he said, hey, I have something for you. The Big Dollar Warehouse, when we moved in here, there were 3,000 tobacco baskets labeled Big Dollar, and we have a couple left. And I've done some research, and indeed, this is it. And I said, I'm coming down to Florida. Can I meet with you? Yes. I drove up there. I met with him the other day. He gave me a tour. I took a picture of one of these baskets, which are about like a 5-foot hoop, labeled on the side, Big Dollar Warehouse, Sparta, Tennessee, kind of stitched with like space in between. The tobacco can dry out. It bends a little bit at the corners. And anyway, I got the tour. He gave me some old pictures of what it looked like. So now I have something to map when I get home in a couple weeks. And on the way out, he says, how'd you get here? And I said, I flew down. I said, huh. He said, you said you're going to visit your parents, which I am, the Snowbirds. They live down the Treasure Coast. And I'm going to visit them after. He says, if I gave you one of those tobacco baskets, could you take it? And I said, yeah, I could. And I said, but shouldn't you have it? Because they ended up selling off all the others to like antique shops or something. He says, no. He said, there's something connected. There's like music history. I want you to have this. And I said, oh, okay. It's good that I got a Jeep on this trip. It has a big back. I can barely fit this thing. I had to collapse the seat. Everything's huge. It's huge. And so I ended up donating it to Mike Boulware, who is kind of an institution in music. And I was at his house for this Mud Pies thing and interviewing him and Danny Roberts the other night and the next day. But when I saw the concert, and then the next day I went back after I'd gone to High Springs, and I said, guys, come out to the truck. I have something for you. And Mike's house is kind of an eclectic mix of all this knickknacks hanging on the wall. It's a really interesting place. But I saw one open spot, and I said, this would be a really good spot for this. I want you to take it. And if Jeff Goldstein has been working on, he's the Gainesville Music History, used to be the Rose Community Guide, Gainesville Music History Foundation, and if they ever raise the money, they need $1 million, it's a long way to go, but for a museum of music history in this town, this would be one of the artifacts. I talked to Jeff outside, and he said, shoot me an email and remind me of that, and I will. But right now, I gave it to Mike, and I said, Mike, hang it here in the meantime. So the big dollar tobacco, I guess my donation. The last thing, and I'll move on with my presentation here, is a thing I posted. The last one I put on the website and I shared on social media before I hopped on the plane to come down here. And this was one of these crooked paths things where a source, Doug Hammond, who knew Tom, and there's kind of overlapping friend groups, but he had messaged me back in April. And at the time, I couldn't get around to it at the time. And I revisited that recently, and he mentions a certain name, and talks about bullying at Gainesville High School. And he talks about that he gave a name of this guy who was a bully, and he gave the name of a guy who, aside from Harry Green, the song, but gave another name, Bo Ogletree. And so I, who protected him and might have protected others. So I started pursuing that, and I did the database research, and I found, and he said, I should say, Doug told me that Bo Ogletree, after his bully protecting days, went to Warren's Cave, which was a popular place where students would go and skip school. And Tom and his friend Keith went there, a lot of people went there. But Bo Ogletree went there, and he was trying to climb down the cave, and he fell, and he broke his back, and he was paralyzed for the rest of his life. And there was a fundraiser that was done to raise money. So I did the database research with newspapers and such. And I found an ad in the University of Florida newspaper for, in 1968, the Bo Ogletree Hospital Fund fundraiser with the Epics. And there was information, so Tom was involved with that. It was at Gainesville High School. And then the bullying part of that with the name that was given. I'm not going to state the name here in this room because it's on the website. But so this is a person that became national news headlines in the early 2000s. And so as soon as I put his name in, it came up, and therefore it was easy to share that part of the story. But what this person did, according to Tom Petty, and I confirmed this with Marty Gerard, who was there when he talked to Tom Petty about it, is that he took Tom and he did the same thing to Doug Hammond and maybe to other kids, I don't know. But took Tom and flipped him upside down, grabbed him by the ankles, and hung him over a railing on the second story somewhere in Gainesville High School just to fuck with his mind. And I thought, man, I mean, I was bullied, but nothing like that, right? So anyway, I had to kind of take a step back, not to become too attached with that, but I wrote that, and it's all on the Gainesville High School story. And anyway, that was one of those crooked path places to get to. So how did this website come about? In January 2024, I was coming to Florida to visit my parents. And my wife Elaine was coming along. She's an academic, so she was interested in coming to the UF Library. Smathers has a really good young adult collection, and that's her specialty, so she wanted to spend time in the special collections. And I said, great, I can drive around and check out some sites, because that was basically my first time. I came here in the 80s, and it was all about just drinking and anyway, whatever, that was a good time. I drove around and I did all this research, and it's like, okay, childhood home, yes, but what else is there to see, and what's the address, and what does anyone know? And it's just like posting messages and this and that, and I was like, oh, this is really tedious and time consuming. And then I was just gonna do it for my own good, and then like type it up with these 10 places, and then put it on Tom Petty Nation and say, here, and it would evaporate the next day, and like no one would know about it, right? And that would have been okay. So